What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are on the tour bus outside the Gramercy Theater, which is approximately a church right now at the moment, so we dress fairly appropriate.
I wore my favorite Bathory t-shirt.
Yeah. Couldn't dress more appropriate on the
I
way to
know,
church.
man. Yeah, my Dark Throne shirt was dirty, so I had to make do. But it's got a big pentagram on the back. So I hope they enjoy that.
There you go. There you go. That's the price they pay for delaying load-in.
Exactly.
And we're here with Josh from Northlane. Thank you for your time today, man.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So your newest record is Alien, which came out about a week or two ago. And is this considered to be like a direct follow-up to your previous record, Mesmer, or do you think that this record kind of stands out more in your catalog?
I think it's its own beast, like entirely. The point of it was for it to not be a follow-up of anything. We wanted to take some big risks with it and address some things that we hadn't talked about before. So, yeah, I wouldn't liken it to anything that we've done.
Okay. So it's fair to say you take a new approach to every album, right? It's not like you guys have like a formula or a signature sound that you tend to like stick with, right?
No, like we always try and innovate our sound every record. I think with Mesmer we played it really safe, and this time we wanted to do the complete opposite.
Okay. What I was curious about is I know that your vocalist Marcus came into North Lane a little bit later in 2014. When he joined the band, did maybe you adjust your playing style away, or did he bring some newer elements into North Lane?
So when he joined the band and we recorded Node, which was our third record, we'd already written most of the music for it. It was already going to sound the way it sounded. But what we had was, a fresh palette to work with in terms of his voice because he's so incredibly versatile. So a lot of people, it's not really a thing we get asked about much anymore. I think our fans have really moved on from it at this point. But a lot of people would ask us like, oh, did you changed your sound because he joined and things like that, but it was already happening. And like, to be fair, I don't know how that record would have turned out if he wasn't on it. I think like the toughest thing was the lack of like preparation we had before we did that record. We kind of got rushed into it, but we are who we are. And I think with Alien we've really kind of grabbed all the intensity that we had on our first two records and injected it into something that's completely new.
Very interesting. As a guitarist, do you find it easier to come up with music when you're like a little more, when you're like in your own element, when you're alone? Like isolation, I would think is like the best element to add to heavy metal. Or is it easier to come up with music when you're with the entirety of your band?
Well, we don't write as a full band. The way our writing process works is John writes the majority of the music, and then I sit down with Marcus and do the vocals. And then we push and pull back and forth a bit with John on how the song needs to turn out once we've laid vocals down. So, we might have to change a progression, or often we change the structure of the song to suit what the vocal's doing. And it's kind of written like that. Nick will take John's music and like develop his own drum parts for it. And the new addition, Brendan, like he was there the whole way, like helping us out too.
Okay.
So it's like collaborative, but we kind of exist in like bubbles, and we find that's the most efficient way of working.
Is there like a key moment that has to occur for you when you start writing? Like, do you look for inspiration or does it just come naturally?
Um, I think so. For me, on this record, none of I wrote lyrics to two songs, which I didn't look for inspiration for because there were things I already wanted to talk about. And I think like if you're forced to look for inspiration, you're probably not ready to start writing. I think you start writing when you are ready to, and you can't rush records because you need to have those life experiences happen in order for you to be ready to write. Um, but the bulk of the topic for Alien was, things that Marcus has had to deal with, and Um, I think it was probably the right time for us to address those. Like, he was finally ready to talk about it, and that is just a Pandora's box of things you barely scratched the surface of now.
And one question I'm curious about is when you're playing this material live, is there a similar energy that you have on the stage and the live presence as you do like in the studio or in the recording process, or is it a completely separate game altogether?
Yeah, it's a totally different game playing live. What we've always done is like written and arranged our songs um, to be the best they can be in the studio. I think like the the longer you keep writing, the more you understand what's going to work live and what doesn't, like what tempos translate well to crowds, what kind of vocal parts people will enjoy to sing, things like that. But we've always been a band that's like written stuff and then gone, all right, now we need to figure out how to recreate this. And it was really difficult with Alien because there's like such a large electronic element to that record. So we actually have a lot of parts in these songs that we do live where John is like playing Ableton and I'm the only one playing guitar, and that was like the right way to do it. So you know, there's always a way to make it happen, but yeah, I don't know. It's very different playing live to in the studio. You know, you don't get a second chance to not fuck something up.
Exactly. Here's a question for you. I love asking every artist this because it's always the hardest question for them to answer. How do you know when a song is done?
um, because the record's been mastered and you can't touch it.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it was really difficult for us on this one because we self-produced the record. So like, we recorded half of it in like May last year and sat on the songs for like 6 months, and then went back January this year and did the rest of it. And we just like gutted half of those songs. So like, yeah, I don't think there is a point. We were even like sending mix revisions after the record had been mastered and like got it remastered, and just it was a huge headache for me and the label, but we got there. Yeah.
There you go. I have two more questions for you. If that's cool, but I forgot where in Australia Northlane is originally from. But I've interviewed quite a bit of bands from Australia, such as King Parrot, Neil Bliviscaris, Thy Art Is Murder.
Yep.
And I feel like for the style that you guys play, like with you guys, Polaris, Parkway Drive, Thy Art Is Murder. Is there like a scene in the area of Australia that Northlane is kind of like affiliated with, or did you guys just want to get the hell out of your hometown to kind of get your name out there more?
Well, no, like our genesis happened in Western Sydney, so none of us live there anymore. Um, we were a metal band in a hardcore scene, which is really difficult. Western Sydney is rough. It is. It had a really big hardcore scene, and we would go to shows there, and that was kind of where the band came from. But now three of us live in Melbourne. Nick, our drummer, lives in the northern beaches of Sydney, which is gorgeous, and our bass player Brendan's from Toronto in Canada.
Wow. You guys need a member from like Antarctica now just to make it even more complicated.
Yeah, I could live there.
It's better than the heat in this city.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah. And the final question I'd like to ask you is that I feel like Northlane has some very, very dedicated fans. It's a sold-out show tonight. People are already lining up for the show tonight. It's going to be killer. When you hear on how your art and your music has helped somebody through hard times, or just relate to your own music, does that change the perspective on yourself as an artist?
100%. In fact, it actually makes me incredibly emotional, believe it or not. A lot of people call me a fucking robot. They're like, you don't have any emotions. Like, yeah, I don't. But
That's what the hardcore scene does too.
yeah, but when I perform these songs live, and the crowd, like, you can tell it matters to them, it brings me to tears. Like Montreal the other night was just phenomenal, and I was like really struggling to hold it together because I'm like on the other side of the world, and there's these songs I've written with Marcus about like an incredibly traumatic experience that's happened to him, and they understand the story and they care about what we do, and that, you know, we're very self-critical people that are very hard on ourselves, and when you get like that payoff with a crowd, it really puts into perspective what's important, I think. You know, like your art is translating emotionally to other people, and it matters. And that's, I don't know, like, it's a hard thing for me to explain without feeling like I'm speaking arrogantly or anything like that, you know, but it's a pretty phenomenal feeling, and it makes you feel on top of the world.
I mean, music is one of the most powerful things in the world. The fact that you have that power to relate to people, I think, is a truly
Yeah.
humbling experience.
You doing it, it also, you I think you have an obligation with that platform to say something that's meaningful and socially responsible.
Yeah, there you go. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Northlane you would like to promote? It's a brand new record cycle. This will be uploaded by in like 2 hours. So if it hasn't been announced, don't say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we announced the Alien World Tour when we announced the record, and yeah, we're halfway through the North American stuff with Aero, Crystal Lake, and Currents. So we still got 2 weeks of this tour left in North America, and then we do Australia, and then we do Europe and the UK, and that takes us all the way up to Christmas. But if there's anything I'd say to the American fans, like, make sure you get to these shows in time to see Crystal Lake, because they're fucking crazy, and if you miss out, like, you really fucked up.
Yeah, they played at a venue that I'm not even kidding is like, I think it's 100 cap, and like they just destroyed the place.
Yeah,
So.
they're ridiculous. We did Japan with them just before this, and it was fucking insane.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh.
Very welcome.
Everybody, Josh of Northlane, Alien, pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.